Stop. It's a trap, turn back, or every last one of you dies tonight. The girl was barefoot, thin as a shadow, and she threw her whole body into the path of 22 roaring motorcycles. Cole Bear Harrison crushed his brakes so hard the tires screamed, stopping inches from her ribs. Nobody warns the Hells Angels, nobody dares. Yet here stood a starving 17-year-old trembling, ready to be run down because she'd rather die than watch these men ride into a slaughter. If a stranger ever risked everything to save you, hit subscribe, stay with me to the very end and comment the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The engines died one by one until the only sound left on that highway was the girl's breathing. She was still standing in the middle of the road, still shaking. Her arms were stretched out wide like she thought her two skinny hands could hold back 3,000 pounds of steel and leather. Cole Harrison sat on his motorcycle and stared at her. 52 years old, gray beard down to his chest, arms covered in ink so old the colors had faded. He had seen a lot of things in his life. He had never seen this. "Get off the road," he said, low, careful. The girl didn't move. "I said get off the road, kid. You almost got yourself killed." "You didn't hear me," her voice cracked. "I said stop, all of you, right now. Don't go any farther up that highway." Behind Cole, the other riders were already climbing off their bikes. 21 men, boots hitting the pavement, leather creaking. Somebody spat on the ground. Somebody else laughed, but it wasn't a kind laugh. A rider named Diesel pushed to the front. Big man, bald head, a temper that had gotten the whole club in trouble more than once. "You know who we are, little girl." "Yes," she said. "Then you know jumping in front of us is the dumbest thing that a person can do." "I know," she said again. And that answer, that quiet, honest answer, made Diesel stop. Cole held up one hand. The whole club went still. That was the kind of respect he had earned over 30 years. When Bear raised his hand, men who feared nothing shut their mouths. "What's your name?" Cole asked. "Emily." "Emily what?" "Carter. Emily Carter." "Okay, Emily Carter." He swung one leg off the bike and stood it up slow so he wouldn't scare her more than she was already scared. "You've got about 10 seconds to tell me why you'd throw your life away to stop a bunch of strangers on the road. And it better be good." Her eyes filled up. Not with tears exactly, with something heavier than tears. "Because I couldn't watch it happen," she whispered. "Not again. Not when I could stop it." "Watch what happened." She lifted one arm and pointed up the highway toward the hills, toward the long, dark stretch of road ahead. "They're waiting for you, up there, past the second curve. There are men in the rocks with rifles, and they've buried something across the road so your tires blow out, and when you crash, they're going to finish all of you." For a second, nobody said anything. Then Diesel snorted. "This is a setup." "No," Emily said. "Sure it is. Little girl stops the club in the middle of nowhere, tells a scary story, keeps us standing still in the open like ducks. Bear, this is bait. She's part of it." "I'm not," Emily said, and her voice climbed higher, faster. "I swear to God, I'm not. I don't even know you. I don't know any of you. I was just looking for food. That's all I was doing. I was looking for something to eat, and I saw them." "Saw who?" Cole cut in. "The men. The ones setting it up. There's 5 of them, maybe 6. They've got a truck hidden behind the ridge. They dragged something metal across the road and covered it with dirt. And one of them kept looking at his phone and saying, 'They'll be here in 20 minutes. Don't move till I say.'" Cole felt something cold slide down his spine, because 20 minutes ago was almost exactly when the club had rolled out of the last gas station. He didn't let it show on his face, but he felt it. "How do you know they meant us?" he asked. "Because one of them said it." Emily wiped her face with the back of her hand. "He said 22 of them, all angels. Nobody's gonna miss a bunch of bikers out here." The laughter stopped. Every single one of them heard that number, 22. They had left the station with exactly 22 riders. Diesel's face changed. "Anybody could count us," he said, but there was less fire in it now. "Then explain how she knew our count before she ever laid eyes on us," Cole said quietly. "She was already on the road when we came around the bend. She didn't have time to count. Somebody told her that number. Or she heard it." Nobody answered. Cole turned back to the girl. He looked at her the way a man looks when he's trying to see all the way to the bottom of somebody. Her jacket was 2 sizes too big and full of holes. Her backpack was empty and flat against her spine. Her shoes weren't shoes anymore, just canvas and string barely hanging onto her feet. And her eyes, he knew those eyes. He'd seen them on kids who'd been alone too long. Kids who'd learned the hard way that the world doesn't come running when you scream. You could have run, Cole said. Oh, I know. Nobody would have blamed you. Girl like you out here alone, nobody expects you to stick your neck out for a pack of outlaws. I know, she said a third time, and then softer. That's exactly why I couldn't leave. Cole frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Emily swallowed hard. It means I know what it feels like, she said. When you're the one in danger and everybody who could have helped just looks the other way and keeps walking and pretends they didn't see. I've been that person. On the ground, watching people step around me like I was garbage. Her chin was trembling now, but she didn't stop. I promised myself if I ever saw somebody about to walk into something bad, I wouldn't be one of those people. I wouldn't look away. Even if it was you. Even if you scared me to death. The whole club heard it. 21 hardened men, most of whom hadn't cried since they were boys, and not one of them said a word. Diesel looked down at his boots. Cole let out a long breath. You scared of us right now, Emily. Yes, she admitted, but you stopped us anyway. Yes. He nodded slowly. He'd spent his whole life measuring people. Who ran, who folded, who lied to save their own skin. And in 30 seconds, this half-starved kid had shown him more backbone than most men showed him in a lifetime. But backbone wasn't proof. And Cole hadn't kept his brothers alive all these years by trusting first and checking later. Here's what's going to happen, he said, raising his voice so the whole club could hear. Snake, Torres, Little Ray, you three take the back trail on foot quiet and you go up past that second curve and you tell me what you find. You do not engage. You look, you count, you come back. The rest of us hold here. 3 riders peeled off without a word and vanished into the brush along the shoulder. Then Cole turned back to Emily. And you, he said, you're going to stand right here where I can see you. If you're lying to me, kid, if this is a game, we'll know in about 5 minutes and it'll go real bad for you. I'm not lying, she said. Then you've got nothing to worry about. But she did worry. He could see it in the way she wrapped her arms around herself. And that worried him more than anything because it wasn't the worry of somebody who'd been caught in a lie. It was the worry of somebody terrified that the men she'd risked her life to save still might not believe her in time. The minutes crawled. Diesel paced. A younger rider named Cutter kept checking the road behind them, like the trap might come from that direction instead. The desert wind pushed dust across the pavement. You got a family, Emily, Cole asked, just to keep her talking. Just to keep her from shaking apart. No. Nobody. There was somebody once, she stared at the ground. Not anymore. How long you been out here on your own? A while, I stopped counting. Where do you sleep? She hesitated like she was ashamed of the answer. There's an old bridge, couple miles that way. It's dry under there, mostly. Cole's jaw tightened. He thought about his own daughter, the one he barely got to see, and how he'd break the arm of any man who let her sleep under a bridge. And here was a girl no different who nobody had come for. How old are you? 17. Somebody in the group cursed under their breath. 17, Cole repeated, and you jumped in front of 22 motorcycles for a bunch of strangers. You needed help, Emily said simply. Like that explained everything. And maybe it did. That was when they heard the footsteps coming back through the brush. Fast. Not the careful pace of men out for a walk. Snake broke through the shoulder first, and his face was pale under the sunburn. Bear. He was breathing hard. She's telling the truth. Every word. The whole club went rigid. Talk, Cole said. 6 of them. Maybe 7. Hidden up in the rocks past the curve spread out on both sides so they'd have us in a crossfire. Long guns. And there's a strip of metal spikes dragged across the whole road buried under a layer of dirt right where the pavement dips, so you'd never see it coming till your front tire blew. Snake shook his head. Bear, if we'd come around that curve at speed, we'd have gone down like dominoes. All of us. Every last man. Silence. 22 men standing on an open highway, all of them realizing at the exact same moment that they should already be dead. Diesel turned around. Slowly. And he looked at Emily this time, not like she was bait, not like she was a threat, but like he was seeing her for the first time. You His voice came out rough. You saved my life. You saved all of us. Emily didn't know what to do with that. She'd braced herself for a lot of things. For them to hit her. For them to leave her in the dust. For them to accuse her and ride off. She had not braced herself for gratitude because gratitude was the one thing the world had never given her. Her legs finally gave out. Cole caught her before she hit the pavement, just grabbed her under the arms and held her up like she weighed nothing, which she nearly did. Easy, he said. Easy, kid. I got you. You're all right. You're all right now. I'm sorry, she was saying over and over. I'm sorry I got dizzy. I didn't eat today. I'm sorry. And that broke something in Cole Harrison that hadn't broken in a long, long time. She hadn't eaten. She was starving. And still hungry and weak and half fainting, she'd found the strength to stand in front of a wall of steel and refuse to move. Cut her, Cole barked. Water, and whatever food anybody's got. Now. 3 riders were already digging through their saddlebags. A canteen appeared, a protein bar, half a sandwich somebody had been saving. Slow, Cole told her, easing her down to sit on the pavement, crouching in front of her so they were eye to eye. Small sips. Don't rush it or you'll be sick. Emily drank. Her hands were shaking so bad she could barely hold the canteen, so Cole steadied it for her. And when she finally looked up at him, her tired blue eyes were wet. You believe me now, she whispered. Yeah, kid. His voice was thick. We believe you. Behind them, the mood of the club had changed completely. The men who'd been ready to ride off 10 minutes ago were now looking up the highway with a hard, cold focus. Because it was one thing to be ambushed by strangers. It was another thing entirely to know that a starving child had thrown herself in front of a firing squad to save them while grown men with guns sat in the rocks waiting to gun them down for sport. They said nobody would miss us, Diesel muttered. Nobody's gonna miss a bunch of bikers out here. They said that, Cutter asked. That's what she heard. Diesel's fists were clenched. That's what those men said. Cole stood up slowly. He looked at the hills. He looked at the curve in the road where 6 or 7 men were still crouched behind rifles, still waiting, still checking their phones, and wondering why the angels hadn't come around the bend yet. Then he looked back down at Emily sitting on the pavement with a half-eaten sandwich in her trembling hands, alive only because she was too stubborn to save herself first. Emily, he said, I need you to tell me everything. Slow and careful in every detail you can remember. How many where they're standing, what they're wearing, what they said, all of it. Why? Cole's face was carved from stone. Because those men made a bad mistake today, he said. They thought they were setting a trap for a pack of dumb outlaws who'd never see it coming. He let his gaze drift back up to the ridgeline. They didn't count on one thing. They didn't count on a girl nobody in this world ever bothered to see. Emily stared up at him. They're going to be sorry they didn't see you, Cole said. I promise you that. And around them, one by one, 21 motorcycles roared back to life, but this time not one of them pointed forward toward the curve. They turned, every single one, facing the hills. Emily sat in the middle of them, small and shaking and no longer alone, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. She felt like somebody had her back. Can you stand? Cole asked her. I think so. Then stand up, Emily Carter. He held out one huge tattooed hand. You did the bravest thing I've ever seen a person do. Now you let us do the rest. She looked at his hand. This man the whole world was afraid of. This man with the gray beard and the cold reputation and the ink up both arms. And she reached up and she took it. His grip closed around her small fingers, steady, warm, certain, and he pulled her gently to her feet. You're one of us now, he said. You understand me? Whatever happens after today, you are never going to sleep under a bridge again. Emily's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Because you can't answer a thing like that when you stop believing you'd ever hear it. Up in the rocks, the men with the rifles were getting nervous. One of them lowered his gun and squinted at the highway at the strange sight of 22 motorcycles turned the wrong way. Engines rumbling, going nowhere. Why aren't they coming? One of them hissed. They should have hit the curve by now. Their leader wiped the sweat off his neck and stared through his scope. And what he saw made his blood run cold. Because standing at the front of that pack of outlaws, sheltered by a wall of leather and steel, was a skinny, blonde girl in a torn jacket. The same homeless girl they'd chased off the ridge that morning and thought nothing of. The same girl they'd let walk away because who would ever believe her? That's her, the leader breathed. That's the little witch from this morning. She saw us. She warned them. He grabbed his radio, and his hand was shaking now too. But it was already too late. Down on the highway, Cole Harrison threw one leg over his motorcycle, settled Emily carefully behind him, felt her thin arms wrap around his waist and hold on tight. He looked over his shoulder at 21 of the toughest men in the country, and every one of them was waiting on his word. They wanted a fight with the Hells Angels, Cole said. He revved the engine until the whole desert shook. Let's go give them one. Orchestrated dramatic narrative continuation with dialogue-driven pacing and psychological depth. Cole felt Emily's arms tighten around his waist the second the engine roared, and he reached back with one hand and covered her small fingers with his. You're not going up there, he said. What? She could barely hear him over the noise. You heard me. You're staying be. Diesel. He waved the big man over. She stays with you, behind the ridge out of the line of fire. She's done her part. She's not doing any more. Emily's grip didn't loosen. If anything, it got harder. No, she said. Cole turned in the seat. Kid, you don't understand. Her voice was shaking, but it wasn't from fear now, or not only from fear. There's a second one. The whole world seemed to stop. A second what? Cole said slowly. A second man with a rifle. On the other side, the low side past the spikes. I didn't tell you because I thought your men saw him, but Snake only said 6, maybe 7, and they were all on the high side, and if he only counted the high side, then there's one more nobody knows about down in the ditch. And if you ride up there thinking you've got them all, Diesel, Cole's voice cracked like a whip. Get Snake now. Snake came running, and Cole grabbed him by the front of his vest. The men you counted, were they all up high, all in the rocks? Yeah, both sides of the curve up in the down low. Was there anybody down low in the ditch by the road? Snake's face went white. I couldn't see the ditch from where I was, the angle. I couldn't see into it. Cole let go of him. For a long moment, he didn't say anything at all. And then he looked back at Emily and something in his chest turned over because he understood exactly what had almost happened. You just saved us again, he said quietly. We were about to charge that curve. We'd have flanked the high side thinking we had him pinned. And that man in the ditch would have had our backs the whole time. Emily nodded. She'd stopped crying. She was past crying now, running on something colder and clearer. That's why I have to come, she said, because I'm the only one who knows where he is. I saw him crawl down there. I know exactly which spot. Diesel was already shaking his head. Bear, we can't take a kid into Pishka. I know. Cole's jaw worked. I know we can't. Then don't. Emily leaned forward, so she was talking right into his ear, low and fierce. Just let me show you. From here. From the ridge. I point, you look, then you put me somewhere safe and you go do what you do. But if you go up there blind, one of you tees, maybe more than one, and I didn't stand in front of your motorcycles just to watch it happen anyway. And that was the thing that got him. Not the logic of it, though. The logic was sound. It was the way she said it. Like the idea of one of them dying now after all this was more than she could stand. Like somewhere in the last 20 minutes, these 22 strangers had stopped being strangers to her. Okay, Cole said. Bear, Diesel started. She points, she shows us, then she's behind the ridge with 2 men on her, and she does not move. That's the deal. He looked at Emily. You break that deal, you don't just put yourself in danger. You put whoever's guarding you in danger too. You understand what I'm telling you. I understand. Say it back to me. I show you where he is, then I go behind the ridge, and I don't move no matter what I hear. No matter what you hear, Cole repeated. That part's the hard part. You're going to hear things up there. You do not come out. I won't. He didn't fully believe her, but there wasn't time. They killed the engines. All of them. 22 motorcycles went silent at once, and the sudden quiet was almost worse than the noise. Cole led them off the pavement on foot into the brush along the shoulder, moving up toward the ridge, the same way Snake had gone, and Emily moved with them, light and quiet, on her ruined shoes, quieter than any of the big men in their heavy boots. Cole noticed. Of course she was quiet. She'd spent months learning how to move without being seen. It was the only thing that had kept her alive. Near the top of the ridge, he raised a fist, and everybody froze. There, Emily breathed, pointing. Not up at the rocks where Snake had seen the others. Down, into a shallow cut in the earth beside the road where the dirt had been kicked up, and a man's boot heel was just barely visible above the lip of the ditch. If you didn't know to look, you'd never see it. You'd ride right past and put your back to him. Cole stared at that boot heel for a long 5 seconds. Torres, he whispered out. You see it. Torres, who'd been in the army before the club, put his eye to the sight of the pistol he carried and nodded once. We got him, Torres breathed. Nobody moves till I say. This is the one who kills us if we're sloppy. Cole turned to Emily and pointed back down the slope to where two riders were already waiting in a fold of the ground out of sight of the road. Go now, head down, stay low, don't stop till you're with them. Go. Emily went. She didn't argue, didn't hesitate, just melted back down the slope the way she'd been taught to disappear. And Cole watched her go and felt a knot in his chest loosen half an inch. Then he turned back to the ridge and the knot pulled tight again, because now came the part where men either lived or died, and there was no starving girl left to save them from their own mistakes. He spread his men wide with nothing but his hands. Left, right. Torres on the ditch, the one job that mattered most. And when they were all set, when 21 hard men were spread across that ridge like a closing hand, Cole did the last thing the ambushers ever expected. He stood up, full height, in the open, where they could all see him, and he shouted down at the rocks, "You boys looking for us." The whole hillside came apart. The first shot cracked off the stone, a foot from Cole's head, and he was already dropping, already rolling, and then his men opened up from every side at once, and the ambush that had been so carefully planned to catch 22 men in a crossfire suddenly found itself in one instead. The men in the rocks had set up to shoot down at a road. They had not set up to be flanked on both sides by an enemy who already knew exactly where every one of them was hiding. That was the thing about a good ambush. It only worked if the other side didn't see it coming. And thanks to a 17-year-old girl, the angels had seen every inch of it coming. Down in the ditch, the hidden man rose up with his rifle, swinging it toward Cole's exposed position. His one job to put a bullet in the leader's back, and Torres, who'd been watching that boot heel for 2 solid minutes, was already on him. It was over in seconds. The man in the ditch never got his shot, and with him down, the last piece of the trap collapsed, and the men in the rocks understood all at once that the hunters had become the hunted. They ran. They didn't fight, didn't hold, didn't try to make a stand. The second they realized their perfect trap had been turned inside out, they scrambled up out of the rocks and bolted for the truck hidden behind the ridge, exactly the way cowards run when the easy kill turns hard. They're rabbiting, Diesel roared. Behind the ridge, they got a truck. Let 'em run, Cole shouted back. Nobody chases, you hear me? Nobody chases. Diesel spun around wild-eyed. Bear, they tried to murder all of us. And every man still standing is a man we don't have to bury. Let them run. Cole was on his feet now, moving fast down the line and grabbing shoulders, turning faces toward him. You chase them onto those rocks. You don't know what's up there. You don't know who's got a gun still pointed. She warned us about one ditch we couldn't see. How many other things can't we see everybody holds? Everybody breathes. Count your brothers. That last order cut through the rage like nothing else could have. Count your brothers. 21 men started calling out names, and Cole stood in the middle of the ridge with his heart hammering, waiting to hear the one number he was terrified he wouldn't get. Snake up, Torres up, Cutter up, Diesel up. One by one they sounded off, and Cole counted them in his head. And when the last voice called out and the number hit 21, his knees almost went. 21, plus himself, 22, not one man down. He looked up at the sky for a second, just for a second, and let out a breath he felt like he'd been holding his entire life. Everybody's up, he said hoarsely. Everybody's up. Nobody's hurt. And that was when he remembered. Emily. He was already running before the word was all the way out. Down the slope, through the brush, back toward the fold of ground where he'd sent her, and the whole way down his chest was seizing up because he'd told her to stay put. No matter what she heard, and what she'd heard was a gunfight. And if that girl had come out, if she'd come looking, if a stray round. He came over the last rise and stopped dead. She was there, sitting exactly where he'd told her to sit between the two riders who'd been guarding her, her knees pulled up to her chest and her arms wrapped around them, and her whole body shaking so hard the two big men on either side of her looked helpless. She'd done it. She'd kept the deal. She'd sat there through the whole thing, through every gunshot, terrified, out of her mind, and she hadn't moved. I heard she got out when she saw him. I heard all the shooting, and I didn't come out. You said don't come out, so I didn't, but I didn't know if any of you. Everybody's fine. Cole dropped to his knees in front of her. You hear me? Everybody's fine. Not one man got a scratch because of you. Every single one of us is walking away from this because of you. She looked at him like she couldn't quite believe it, and then the shaking got worse instead of better. Because that's what happens when the fear finally has somewhere to go. And she pressed her face against her knees, and her shoulders started heaving. Cole did the only thing he knew how to do. He put one big arm around her thin shoulders, careful like she was made of glass, and he held on. You did good, kid, he said quietly over and over. You did so good. It's over. You can let go now. I got you. It's over. The other men gathered around them, this ring of leather and gray beards and hard faces, and not one of them said a word, and not one of them looked away, and Emily Carter cried in the middle of them, like a girl who had been holding it in for years, which she had. When she finally lifted her head, wiping her face with both hands, embarrassed now, the first thing she said was, the ones who ran, they're going to come back. Cole frowned. They won't. They got humiliated. Men like that don't. You don't get it. She grabbed his sleeve. This wasn't their idea. The men in the rocks, they were hired. I heard them talking about it. One of them kept complaining they weren't getting paid enough for a whole club. Somebody paid them to do this. Somebody who wanted all of you dead specifically. This wasn't random robbers, Cole. Somebody sent them. The whole ring of men went still. Cole sat back on his heels. Say that again. They were hired guns. They kept talking about the money, about how the guy who hired them said it had to be all of you. No witnesses, make it look like it happened on the road. One of them said the name of the person who paid them. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to pull it back. It started with I only heard it once. Take your time. Merrick, she said, suddenly opening her eyes. That was it. They said Merrick's money better clear or we walk. Merrick, does that mean anything to you? For one long second, Cole Harrison didn't breathe. The men around him saw it, saw the color drain out from behind that gray beard, saw the leader who never flinched go completely rigid, and every one of them knew in that instant that the name meant something. It meant something bad. Bear, Diesel said carefully. You know that name. Cole stood up, slow. His hands had curled into fists without him deciding to do it. Yeah, he said, I know it. Who is he? Cole looked out at the empty road at the rocks where 6 hired killers had waited to gun down his whole family, and his voice when it came out was low and terrible. Danny Merrick, he said, is a man I put in prison 11 years ago. Nobody spoke. He ran guns through half the state, used a couple of our runs as cover without us knowing, dragged the club's name into it, and when it all came down, he tried to pin the whole thing on us to save his own neck. I'm the one who found the proof it was him. I'm the one who handed it over. Cole's jaw tightened. He swore in that courtroom he'd get every last one of us. I figured it was just talk. Man says a lot of things when they're dragging him out in cuffs. 11 years, Snake said quietly. You're telling me he waited 11 years? He got out, Cole said. Must have got out. And the first thing he did, he stopped because his throat had closed up and he had to force the rest through it. The first thing he did was send 6 men to wipe us off the map on an empty road where nobody'd ever find us. 22 of us. He wanted all 22. The silence after that had weight to it, and then Emily said the thing that made all of them turn. Then he's going to try again. Cole looked at her. He is, she said. If he waited 11 years, if he paid all that money, if he wanted all of you, and he didn't get any of you, you think he stops now? He's going to find out it failed, and he's going to try again. And next time he'll know you're expecting it. Diesel let out a long breath. The kid's right. The kid, Cole said, keeps being right. He looked down at her, this 17-year-old who'd been sleeping under a bridge that morning and had somehow in the space of one afternoon walked straight into the middle of an 11-year-old blood feud and seen the shape of it faster than any of them. How do you do that? He asked her. It wasn't really a question. How do you see all this so clear? Emily looked down at her hands. When you've got nothing, she said, and nobody's coming to help you, you get real good at seeing what's about to happen, because seeing it coming is the only thing that keeps you alive. She looked back up at him. I've been watching for the next bad thing for 2 years. It's just what I do now. I can't turn it off. And Cole thought 2 years. 2 years of a child watching every shadow, reading every stranger, bracing for the next blow all alone. 2 years of the skill that had just saved 22 lives being ground into her by a world that couldn't be bothered to save one. Well, he said, and his voice was rough. From today on, you're not watching alone. You got 22 of us watching with you now. And a couple of us are real good at making bad things stop before they start. Something crossed her face. Hope may be fighting with the part of her that had learned never to believe a promise, because every promise she'd ever been given had been broken. You don't have to do that, she said. I told you where the trap was. You don't owe me anything. I didn't do it so you'd... I know why you did it, Cole said. That's exactly why we're not letting you walk off into that desert alone, because you didn't do it for anything. You did it because it was right, and you had nothing, and you gave everything anyway. He shook his head slowly. You know how rare that is, kid? You know how many people I've met in 52 years who do what you did today? I can count them on one hand. And most of them are standing on this ridge right now. Emily didn't have an answer for that. Her mouth opened and closed. Bear, Torres called out. He was standing over by the ditch over the man he'd taken down, and his voice had an edge to it. You're going to want to see this. This one's still breathing, and he's talking. The whole group moved. The man in the ditch was hurt, but conscious and scared. Scared in the particular way of a man who'd expected to be on the winning side and was now looking up at a ring of the people he'd been hired to murder. Torres had taken his rifle and stood over him with it. Cole crouched down. You know who I am, he asked. The man nodded, jaw clenched. Then you know I got no reason to be gentle. So here's how this goes. You tell me about Merrick, where he is, how to reach him, what the plan was after this, and maybe you walk out of this desert on your own 2 feet. You lie to me or you clam up, and I let my boys decide what happens to a man who came out here to gun down my family. Cole's voice never rose. That was the terrifying part. You want to test whether I'm bluffing? The man's eyes flicked around the ring of faces and found no mercy in any of them. He's not here, the man said finally. Merrick, he didn't come. He never comes. He pays and he watches from somewhere safe. Watches how... The man hesitated and Torres shifted the rifle and the man talked fast. One of us was supposed to send a photo after. Proof it was done. He wanted a photo of all of you before he said he wanted to see it. Said he'd waited too long not to see it. Something ugly moved through the whole group at that. So he's expecting a photo, Cole said. And when he doesn't get one, then he knows it went wrong. The man swallowed, and he moves to the backup. Cole went very still. What backup? I don't know the details. I swear I don't. All I know is he said if the road didn't work, he had another way in. Something closer. Somebody on the inside. The man's eyes were pleading now. That's all he told us. That's everything. Somebody on the inside. The words landed like a dropped stone. Somebody on the inside. Cole stood up slow and he looked around the ridge at 21 faces he'd trusted with his life. For years at Brothers, he'd bled beside, and for the first time in a very long time, a cold and terrible doubt crept into his chest, because a man on the inside meant one of these faces might not be what it seemed. And every man there felt it land, felt the leader's eyes pass over them, felt for one awful second the trust that held the whole club together shiver like it might crack. Bear, Diesel said low, Don't let him do that. That's exactly what a man like Merrick wants. He wants us looking at each other instead of at him. He plants one word inside and suddenly we're all wondering and the club eats itself. That's the real trap, not the road. This. Cole knew he was right. He knew it in his bones. And still the doubt was there and he hated it, and he hated Merrick for putting it there. It was Emily who broke it. He's lying, she said. Everyone looked at her. She was staring down at the man in the ditch and her tired blue eyes had gone sharp and certain. Not about everything, she said, but about that. The inside part. Watch his face. She crouched down closer than Cole liked, but he let her. You didn't hear that from Merrick, did you? She said to the man. You're saying it because you're scared and you think if you make it sound like there's more, we'll keep you alive to find out. You made it up just now. I saw you make it up. The man's face did something. A flicker. A tell. And every man on that ridge saw it because now they were looking for it. He started. You don't know anything about an inside man, Emily said, gentle and merciless at the same time. You just wanted us to think you did, because information is the only thing keeping you breathing, and you ran out of real information about 30 seconds ago. The man's shoulders sagged, and in that collapse was the confession, plain as day. Cole let out a breath, and with it went the poison that had almost gotten into the club. "How," he said to Emily, "did you know that?" She stood back up and dusted off her knees, and there was something almost sad in the way she said it. "Because I've done it," she said simply. "When somebody bigger than you has all the power and you've got nothing, sometimes the only card you've got is making them think you know something they need. I've bluffed men twice his size to stay alive. I know exactly what it looks like from the outside now, because I've felt it from the inside." She shrugged, and it broke Cole's heart a little, that shrug. It's not a nice thing to be good at. For a moment, nobody said anything. Then Diesel, huge, bald, hot-tempered Diesel, who'd called her bait an hour ago, said something none of them expected. "Kid," he said quietly, "I'm sorry for what I said back on the road, calling you bait, saying you were part of it." He rubbed the back of his cheek, awkward as a boy. "I was wrong. I've never been more wrong about a person in my life." Emily looked at him surprised, and then she did something that surprised all of them. She smiled, a small, tired, real smile, the first one any of them had seen from her. "You were right to be careful," she said. "A girl jumps in front of your bikes in the middle of nowhere, you should be careful. That's smart. That's how you stay alive." Then the smile turned wry. "I just happened to be telling the truth." Diesel let out a bark of laughter, surprised out of him, and just like that, some of the terrible weight lifted off the ridge, and a couple of the other men were smiling too, and the club felt like a club again instead of a group of frightened men. But Cole wasn't smiling, because the real problem hadn't gone anywhere. "None of this changes the fact," he said, and the group quieted, "that Danny Merrick is out there. He's got money, and in about an hour he's going to figure out this didn't work. Emily's right about that, even if this fool's lying about the rest. Merrick's not going to quit, so the question isn't whether he tries again. It's when," Snake finished. "And where," Cole said. "And how, and whether we're going to sit around waiting to find out or whether we go find him first." That landed hard. A few of the men shifted. "Go find him," Cutter repeated. "You mean go after Merrick, on purpose?" "I mean, I'm not going to spend the next 11 years wondering which empty road he's waiting on." Cole's voice was iron now. "He came for all of us. He came for my family. I'm not going to let my brothers ride around this state looking over their shoulders forever, because one coward with a grudge and a checkbook decided we should die. We find him. We end it. Clean and legal if we can, but we end it." "And how do we find a man like that?" Diesel asked. "Guy's been planning this from a prison cell for 11 years. He's not going to be sitting in a diner waiting for us." Cole didn't answer right away, and then slowly every man on that ridge realized he wasn't looking at Diesel. He was looking at Emily. "No," she said, immediately understanding before he'd said a word. "You heard them talk," Cole said gently. "You heard things nobody else heard. You catch things the rest of us miss. You've been catching them all afternoon. You're not part of this fight, kid. I'd never make you part of this fight. But you need someone who sees what's coming," she finished for him. "Quiet. You need someone who spent every day for 2 years watching for the next bad thing." Cole didn't confirm it. He didn't have to. Emily looked around the ring of faces. At Diesel, who'd apologized. At Torres standing guard. At Snake and Cutter and 18 more men she hadn't even learned the names of yet, at all of them alive because of her, all of them looking at her now, not with pity, not with suspicion, but with something she had no name for because she'd never been on the receiving end of it before. They were looking at her like she mattered, like her being there made them safer, like she belonged. And that was the thing that broke her finally in a way the gunfire hadn't. "I don't have anywhere else to be," she said, and her voice cracked in the middle of it, and she laughed at herself for it wet-eyed. "That's the joke. That's the whole joke of it. You're asking me like it's some big thing to ask, like I've got a life to get back to, and I've got nothing. I've got a backpack with nothing in it, and shoes that aren't shoes, and a bridge I sleep under. So yeah, I'll help you, because for the first time in 2 years, somebody actually wants me around, and I'm not stupid enough to walk away from that." Cole crossed the space between them and put both his big hands on her shoulders, and he looked her right in the eyes. "You listen to me," he said. "You're going to help us because you're the smartest person on this ridge, and we'd be fools not to have you. But that's not why you're coming with us. His grip tight and gentle but sure. You're coming with us because you're one of us now, and we don't leave our own behind. That was true the second you stepped in front of those bikes. Merrick or no Merrick, you understand me? Emily nodded because she couldn't speak. Say it, Cole said, same as he'd said on the road an hour and a lifetime ago. I'm one of you now, she whispered. That's right. He let go of her shoulders. That's exactly right. And then out across the desert, faint but unmistakable, came the sound of an engine. Not a motorcycle. Everyone knew the difference instantly. This was a truck, coming down the same highway they'd come in on from the same direction, moving fast. 22 people went dead silent and turned toward the sound. Torres was the first to put it together. The photo, he said, the one Merrick wanted. Somebody's coming to take the photo. Or Merrick sent somebody to check why the phone went quiet. Cole finished. The truck was getting closer, and whoever was in it had no idea that the trap had failed. No idea that the 6 hired guns were scattered and beaten. No idea that the 22 men they'd expected to find dead in the road were instead very much alive, very much armed, and very much done being hunted. Cole's face hardened into something Emily hadn't seen yet. Everybody off the ridge, he said quietly. Back to the bikes. Now. Nobody makes a sound. He turned to Emily last and put a hand on her back, steering her down the slope with the rest of them. Stay in the middle of us. Whatever's in that truck, it goes through us before it gets anywhere near you. And as 22 people melted down off that ridge and back toward the silent motorcycles, as the truck's engine grew louder and closer in the fading light, Emily Carter looked up at the man leading her into the middle of a war that had started 11 years before she was ever there, and understood with the same clear certainty that had kept her alive for 2 years that she had just stopped being alone. Whatever was coming down that road, she wasn't going to face it by herself ever again. The truck slowed as it reached the stretch of road where the trap had been set, and Cole crouched behind his motorcycle with 21 men fanned out silent around him. Watched it roll to a stop right on top of the buried spikes. Whoever was driving didn't know the spikes were there. That told Cole something. This wasn't one of the shooters coming back. This was somebody who'd been told a road not shown it. The truck door opened. One man got out. Just one. He was younger than Cole expected. Clean clothes. A phone in his hand already raised, already looking for the thing he'd been sent to photograph 22 dead bikers in the road. And there was nothing. Empty pavement, empty rocks, no bodies, no blood, nothing that was supposed to be there. Cole watched the man's face change as he understood. Watched the phone lower an inch. Watched him turn a slow circle and start to realize that if the thing that was supposed to be here wasn't here, then the 22 men who were supposed to be dead were somewhere very much alive. Now, Cole said, barely a breath. 22 people rose up out of the brush at once. The man dropped his phone. He didn't run. There was nowhere to run. He was surrounded before his brain even caught up. He just froze, hands coming up, face going the color of old paper. Don't, Cole said, walking toward him, slow. Don't move, don't reach, don't do anything but talk. You understand me? The man nodded fast. Who sent you? I don't. Wrong answer. Cole was 3 feet away now. You came out here to take a picture of my dead brothers. That means you know exactly who sent you. So I'm going to ask you one more time, and how you answer decides everything that happens to you in the next 10 minutes. Who sent you? The man's eyes went around the ring of faces and found the same thing the shooter in the ditch had found. No way out. Merrick, he choked. Danny Merrick. I just take pictures. Okay, I'm not a shooter. I don't hurt people. He just pays me to document things. That's all. He wanted proof it got done. He said there would be bodies. He said all I had to do was... Where is he? Cole's voice cut through it. Merrick, where is he right now? I don't know. You just talked to him. You just drove out here on his orders. Don't tell me you don't know. I don't know where he lives. I swear I only ever meet him at... The man stopped himself, and Cole saw it. Saw the man realize he'd said too much. At where? Cole said softly. The man's mouth closed, and that was when Emily stepped forward. Cole caught her arm. Kid, it's okay, she said it quietly, and there was something in her voice that made him let go. She walked up to the man, this skinny girl in the torn jacket, and she looked at him not with menace, but with something almost like recognition. You're not like the others, she said. The ones in the rocks. They were killers. You're not. You're just a guy who takes money to look the other way while other people do the killing. She tilted her head. How long you been working for him? The man blinked at her, thrown. A couple months. And in a couple months, you never once asked what the pictures were for. You just took them. It's not my business what. It became your business the second you drove out here, expecting 22 dead bodies, and you didn't turn around, Emily said. Not cruel, just true. You knew. Maybe you told yourself you didn't, but you knew what you were coming to take a picture of. And you came anyway, because looking the other way pays, and you'd rather have the money than the truth. The man couldn't hold her eyes. I know what that's like, she said, and her voice changed, went quiet and private, and every man on that road went still to listen. I've watched 100 people look the other way, from the ground, when I needed help and they had somewhere to be. It's the easiest thing in the world, isn't it, to decide it's not your business. To keep walking, to take the picture, and not think about the body. She stepped closer. But here's the thing you don't know yet because you're still young enough to not know it. It follows you. Every time you looked away, it stays with you. And one day you're going to be my age or his age. She nodded at Cole. And you're going to add it all up, all the times you could have done something and didn't, and it's going to be the heaviest thing you carry. The road was dead silent. So here's your one chance, Emily said, to not be that guy. Where do you meet Merrick? The man looked at her for a long moment, and something in him broke, not from fear this time, but from being seen from a starving girl reaching into him and finding the last soft place he had left. There's a garage, he said, off the old county road north of town. Auto shop looks closed down, but it's not. That's where he runs everything. That's where I drop the pictures. He'll be there tonight. He told me to bring the proof straight there. Said he'd be waiting up for it. The man swallowed. He's not going to wait long before he knows something went wrong. I was supposed to be back an hour ago. Cole and Diesel exchanged a look over the man's head. An hour ago, Cole repeated. Then he already knows, Emily said quietly. He's already figuring it out, which means he's already moving. Cole turned to his men. This is it. This is the whole thing. We know where he is, and we've got maybe a couple hours before he decides the garage isn't safe and disappears again for another 11 years. We move now or we lose him. Bear. It was Snake. We go after Merrick at his own place on his own ground. We don't know what he's got waiting. Could be more hired guns. Could be a lot worse than 6. I know. And we've got a 17-year-old kid with us. Everybody looked at Emily. I know that too, Cole said. He turned to her. And that's where you get off this train, kid. This next part isn't for you. You got us this far. You got us further than we had any right to get. But I'm not riding a child into a gunfight with a man like Danny Merrick. That's where I draw the line. Emily was already shaking her head. You need me to. I need you alive, Cole said. And it came out harder than he meant it rough with something he didn't have a name for. You hear me? An hour ago, I didn't know you existed. And already the idea of you catching a bullet in some garage because of my war, a war that's got nothing to do with you, I can't. I won't. So don't ask me to. Emily stared at him. And Cole saw her understand slowly that he wasn't talking to her like a tool he needed anymore. He was talking to her like a man afraid of losing something. Then what do I do? She asked Small. You go somewhere safe with 2 of my men, and you wait. He softened. And when it's done, we come back for you. All of us. I give you my word. People break their word, she said. It wasn't an accusation, it was just the truth she'd learned. Not this people, Diesel said before Cole could. Not this club. You'll learn that. Bear says he's coming back for you. He's coming back for you, or he's coming back in a box. Those are the only 2 ways it goes. Emily looked around at all of them, and Cole watched the war on her face. 2 years of learning that every promise was a lie up against 22 men who'd just proven in the space of an afternoon that some promises weren't. Okay, she said finally, barely. But it was the man from the truck who changed everything. You're going to walk into that garage and get slaughtered, he said. They all turned. He'd found something in himself in the last few minutes. Maybe it was Emily's words. Maybe it was just a man deciding at the last possible second which side of a line he wanted to be on. Merrick's not stupid. If he knows the road failed, he's not just gonna sit in that garage and wait for you. He's gonna assume you might come. And he's got a way to know if anyone's coming. The man's voice dropped. There's cameras all over the county road leading up to the garage. He watches them from inside. You come up that road on 22 motorcycles, he sees you a mile out, and he's either gone or he's ready. Either way, you lose. Cole's jaw tightened. Then how do we get to him? You can't, not up the road, not the way he expects. The man hesitated, and then he said the thing that turned the whole night. But I can. He's expecting me. He's expecting my truck coming up that county road right now, an hour late with the pictures. He looked at the ground. I could drive up like nothing's wrong, and I could bring whatever's in the back of my truck. For a second, nobody understood. And then everybody did at once. You'd hide us, Diesel said slowly, in the truck. He's watching for motorcycles. He's not watching for his own guy coming home late. The man wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. It's the only way you get close before he sees you. That's what I can do. That's the picture I can take this time. Cole studied him for a long moment. Why, he said. An hour ago you were his man. Why turn now? The man looked at Emily. Because she's right, he said quietly, about the looking away. I've been doing it for years, and I'm real tired of how heavy it's gotten. He shrugged, helpless. Figured maybe it's time to carry something else instead. The road was quiet. And Emily, who had spent 2 years believing that people never changed, that everyone who could help would always look away. Emily watched a man decide to be better because of something she'd said and felt something shift in her chest that she couldn't have explained if she tried. Okay, Cole said finally. Okay, but if you're playing us, if this is one more trap, it's not, then you'll be the first one who finds out how the angels handle a man who plays them. We clear. Clear. Cole turned to organize it, and that was when Emily said the words that stopped him cold. I'm coming in the truck. No, Cole said without even turning around. Listen to me first. She grabbed his arm, made him turn. You said he's got cameras. You said he watches everything. If he's paranoid enough to have cameras all down that road, then when the truck pulls up, he's going to be watching that truck close. He's going to be looking for anything wrong. And you know what looks wrong? She jabbed a finger at the man from the truck. Him, pulling up an hour late, sweating, scared out of his mind alone. Merrick's going to take one look at his face on that camera and know something's off before the truck even stops. The man from the truck went pale because she was right, and he knew it. But Emily pressed on, you know what doesn't look wrong? What looks completely normal? A guy coming back from a job with a scared homeless girl in the passenger seat. She let that land. You think Merrick's never had somebody grab a witness? A girl who saw too much on that road? He sees me in the truck, terrified, hands tied. He doesn't think ambush. He thinks they cleaned up a loose end and brought her to me. He thinks it went right. It's the most normal thing in the world for that truck to come back with a scared girl in it. It's cover. I'm the reason he doesn't look too close at the back of the truck. I'm the reason it works. Silence. And the worst part, the part that made Cole's stomach turn, was that it was brilliant. It was exactly right. It was the difference between the plan working and the plan getting all of them killed. No, he said again, but it was weaker now. You know I'm right. I know you're 17, Cole's voice cracked. I know that an hour ago you were nobody's problem, and now you're standing here volunteering to ride into a garage owned by a man who wants everyone I love dead, and he stopped, ran a hand down his face. You want to know the truth, kid? The truth is, I'd rather lose Merrick. I'd rather he get away. I'd rather spend the next 11 years watching my back than put you in that truck. That's the truth. That's how fast it happened. Emily looked at him, and for the first time her eyes filled up not from fear, not from exhaustion, but from something else entirely, something she hadn't felt in so long she'd forgotten the shape of it. You mean that, she said, you'd let a man who tried to kill all of you walk free, to keep me safe, a girl you met an hour ago? Yeah, Cole said. I would. Why? And Cole Harrison, 52 years old, who had a reputation that made strangers cross the street, who'd buried friends in broken bones and stared down more danger than most men see in 10 lifetimes, said the thing that had been building in his chest since the second she'd stepped in front of his bike. Because somewhere out there, he said, is a man who let you end up under a bridge. Somebody who was supposed to keep you safe and didn't. And I don't know who he is, and I'll probably never meet him. But I know I'm not going to be another one. I'm not gonna be one more grown man who let you walk into something bad and told himself it wasn't his business. His voice was thick. You spent 2 years watching for the next bad thing all alone. Well, I'm the next thing now, and I'm not bad, and I'm not gonna be the reason you get hurt. So no, you're not going in that truck. Because I finally got the chance to be the person who didn't look away, and I'm not gonna blow it by handing you to Danny Merrick. The whole club was silent. Some of them had turned away because grown men don't like to be seen when their eyes go wet, and more than a few of theirs had. Emily stood there and the tears spilled over, and she didn't wipe them this time. Nobody's ever said anything like that to me, she whispered. In my whole life, nobody. Well, Cole said gruffly, get used to it, because you got 22 of us now and we're all going to be saying it, and you're going to get real sick of hearing it. She laughed, wet and broken and real, and for a second the whole terrible night lifted. And then she wiped her face and squared her thin shoulders and said the thing that told Cole exactly who she was all the way down. I'm still coming in the truck. Emily. No, you listen now. Her voice was steady. You just told me you'd let Merrick walk free to keep me safe. And I love you for it. I don't even know you. And I love you for it because nobody ever chose me over anything before. But Cole, if you let him walk free, he doesn't stop. You said it yourself. He waited 11 years. He'll wait 11 more. And someday, some empty road, he gets one of you. Maybe all of you. And I'll have to live the rest of my life knowing you had him. You had him tonight and you let him go for me, to keep me out of one truck. She shook her head. I can't carry that. I've watched people die because nobody stepped in. I'm not going to be the reason people I care about die because somebody stepped in too far for me when I could have helped and didn't. Cole stared at her. You'd risk your life, he said slowly, to make sure I don't lose one of mine. You already did it for me, she said simply. You stopped 22 motorcycles for a girl you didn't know. I stopped them first, remember? We're the same, you and me. We're exactly the same. We just can't walk away when somebody's about to get hurt. It's the thing that's wrong with both of us. She almost smiled. It's the only good thing I've got. Don't ask me to turn it off now. And Cole Harrison understood standing on that darkening road that he'd lost the argument the moment he'd started caring about her because she was made out of the exact same stubborn, self-sacrificing steel that he was, and asking her to stand down was asking her to be someone else. Diesel, he said finally, not taking his eyes off her. Yeah, Bear. In the back of that truck. You're closest to the passenger side. If anything goes wrong, anything, you come through that cab wall for her first, before Merrick, before anything. She's the first thing you protect. You hear me? With my life, Diesel said. Cole turned back to Emily. This is the deal. You sit in that seat, you look scared, which won't be hard because you should be. You get him watching you instead of the truck. And the second that truck stops and the back opens up, you get down. Floor of the cab, hands over your head. You don't look up, you don't get out, you don't do one brave thing because you've done enough brave things for 10 lifetimes today, and now it's our turn. Can you do that? Can you be still and let us protect you for once? Emily nodded. I can do that. Say it. I stay down, I let you protect me. It's your turn. That's right. Cole let out a long, shaking breath. God help me, that's right. They loaded up fast because the man from the truck was right that every minute made Merrick more suspicious. Diesel and 8 of the biggest, hardest men in the club climbed into the back of the truck and pulled a tarp over themselves, packed in tight and silent. The rest would follow at a distance on their bikes' engines, off-coasting the last stretch, ready to come in the second it started. The man from the truck got behind the wheel, hands shaking on the keys. Hey, Emily said to him, climbing into the passenger's seat. What's your name? He looked at her surprised. Nobody's asked me that all night. I'm asking. Reggie. Okay, Reggie. She settled into the seat and Cole watched through the open door as this girl who'd been terrified an hour ago made herself the calm one, the steady one for the sake of the frightened man beside her. You're doing the right thing. First time in a while, maybe. It's going to feel bad and scary the whole way there, and that's okay. That's just what doing the right thing feels like when you're out of practice. You keep driving anyway. Reggie's hand stopped shaking. A little. How do you know all this? He asked. You're a kid. I'm out of practice at a lot of things, Emily said quietly, but not this one. This one I never stopped doing. She looked out the windshield at the dark road ahead, at the county road that led to a garage where an old enemy was waiting, even when it cost me everything. Cole shut the passenger door gently. Through the window, he put his hand flat against the glass. Emily lifted hers and pressed it to the other side. "I'm coming right behind you," he said, through the glass, "the whole way. You won't be able to see me, but I'm there. Every foot of that road, I'm right there, Maudson." "I know," she said, and the thing was, she believed it. Completely. For the first time in 2 years, she said, "I know" to a promise, and believed it all the way down. The truck's engine turned over, and as it pulled away into the dark with a homeless girl in the passenger seat and 8 armed men hidden under a tarp behind her, Cole Harrison swung onto his motorcycle and 21 riders formed up silent behind him, and they rolled out into the night after her engines, quiet headlights, dark hearts hammering, every single one of them bound now to a 17-year-old girl who'd walked into their lives that afternoon with nothing and had somehow become the one thing all 22 of them would die before they'd lose. The county road unrolled in the dark, and Emily kept her eyes forward and her hands in her lap and made herself into exactly what Merrick needed, to see a scared girl caught delivered. It wasn't hard, she was scared. "First camera coming up," Reggie said under his breath, barely moving his lips. "On the pole. Don't look at it." "I won't. He'll be watching now. Once we pass this one, he knows the truck's coming. He'll be at the screen." "Then let him watch," Emily said quietly. "Let him see the scared girl. Keep your eyes on the road, Reggie. You're just a guy driving home from a job. That's all you are. You've done this drive 100 times. The truck rolled past the camera. Emily felt it go by like a cold hand across the back of her neck. Somewhere ahead in a garage that looked closed but wasn't Danny Merrick was looking at a screen, seeing this truck, seeing her. Behind them, hidden under the tarp diesel, and 8 men lay dead still, and the only thing Emily could hear was her own heart. "Second camera," Reggie whispered. "Halfway there now. You're doing good. I'm about to be sick." "Don't be sick. Be angry." Emily kept her voice low and even. "You spent months taking pictures for him. Whatever he had, you photograph. Whatever you told yourself you weren't seeing, you're about to make it right. Hold on to that. It's a lot easier to drive scared when you're driving towards something instead of away." Reggie's jaw set, his hand steadied on the wheel, and then a quarter mile out, his phone rang. Both of them froze. The screen lit up in the console. One word: Merrick. "He never calls," Reggie breathed. "He never, I drop the pictures and leave. He never calls me. Why is he?" "Answer it," Emily said instantly. "What?" "You don't answer. He knows something's wrong. Answer it. Put it on speaker so I can hear." "And Reggie," she grabbed his wrist, "whatever he asks, you're an hour late because the road was a mess, that's all. You're tired and you're late and you've got the girl. Don't add anything. Don't explain too much. Guilty men explain too much." The phone rang a third time. Reggie answered. His voice came out rougher than his own. "Yeah, you're late." The voice on the phone was quiet, patient, and somehow that patience was worse than shouting would have been. It was the voice of a man who had waited 11 years and knew exactly how to wait a little longer. "You're a whole hour late, Reggie." "Road was blocked," Reggie said. "Had to go around. It was a mess up there. Took forever to get clear." A pause. "A mess," Merrick repeated. "Yeah, you get my pictures." And there it was. The whole night balanced on one word. If Reggie said yes and Merrick asked to see them, it was over. If he said no, Merrick would want to know why. Emily squeezed his wrist hard. She mouthed one word. Her. "I got something better," Reggie said. "I got the girl." Silence on the line, long enough that Emily's heart climbed into her throat. "What girl?" Merrick said. "The one who saw it. There was a witness on the road. Homeless kid been watching the whole time. The boys said to bring her to you instead of leaving a loose end out there for the cops to find." Reggie was sweating, but his voice held. "Figured you'd want to handle that yourself." The pause stretched out again. Emily could feel Merrick thinking on the other end, could almost feel the paranoia turning it over, looking for the wrong note in it. "A witness," Merrick said slowly. "She saw everything, face and all. You want me to just dump her somewhere? Your call. I brought her in case." And that was the masterstroke Emily saw it land even from her side of the phone. Reggie had made it Merrick's decision. A man that paranoid didn't trust things handed to him. But a problem he got to solve himself, a loose end, He got to personally tie off that he'd won. Bring her, Merrick said. Pull around back. Same as always? And Reggie, yeah. If there's anything in that truck I don't like, you're the first one I put down. You understand me? The line went dead. Reggie let out a breath that shook the whole cab. He knows, he whispered. He knows something's wrong. That last part, he suspects, Emily corrected. There's a difference. He suspects everything all the time. That's how he stayed alive. He said that to you to see if you'd flinch. She looked at him. Did you flinch? I don't think so. Then keep driving. We're almost there. When you pull around back, you stop the truck. You get out slow and you come around to my door like you're getting me out. That puts you between me and him. Give the boys 3 seconds to hear the back open. 3 seconds, Reggie, that's all they need. She looked at the console clock at the dark road at the shape of a building coming up out of the night. You've been looking away your whole life. You've got 1 more minute of it, and then you never have to look away again. And if I get shot, Emily was quiet for a second, then you'll have died looking right at it, she said, which is more than most people ever manage. But you're not going to get shot. You're going to do this one right, and you're going to live, and someday you're going to tell somebody about the night you stopped being a coward. Now drive. The truck rolled around the back of the garage and stopped. Under the tarp, 9 men tensed. A quarter-mile back, engines silent, 22 motorcycles coasted to a halt, and Cole Harrison was off his bike and moving before it had fully stopped closing the distance on foot, his heart a fist in his throat because his eyes were on that truck and the girl inside it, and every step felt too slow. Reggie killed the engine. His hand shook on the door handle. Slow, Emily breathed. You've done this 100 times. Slow. He got out, left the door open behind him. Emily had told him to, so the boys under the tarp could hear everything. His boots crunched on gravel as he came around the front of the truck. And from the shadows of the garage, a voice said, "Stop right there." Reggie stopped. 2 men Emily hadn't seen stepped out of the dark. Not the hired guns from the road. These were closer in, quieter, more dangerous. And behind them, unhurried, came a 3rd man. Emily knew it was Merrick before Reggie said a word. She'd spent 2 years reading people, and everything about this man read the same: the stillness, the flat eyes, the way the other 2 orbited him like he was the thing that gravity bent around. 11 years in a cell had carved him down to something hard and patient and wrong. Where's the girl? Merrick said. In the truck, Reggie said. Passenger seat. She's tied up. She's scared. She's not gonna. Bring her out. You, not me. Merrick's flat eyes went to the truck, to the passenger window, to Emily. She made herself small, made herself shake, made herself exactly what he expected, and the whole time her mind was racing because something was wrong. The men were spread too wide. Merrick was standing too far back. This wasn't a man walking into a trap. This was a man who'd already smelled one. Reggie opened her door, reached in for her arm, and Merrick said, "Stop." Reggie froze. Her hands aren't tied, Merrick said softly. The whole world stopped. Emily looked down at her own hands free in her lap and understood in one sick heartbeat the mistake. Reggie had said she was tied up, and she wasn't. And there hadn't been any rope in the truck, and now Merrick was looking right at her. Free hands and his own were moving toward his belt. Now! Emily screamed. Diesel, now! The tarp exploded. 9 men came up out of the back of the truck in a single roaring surge, and the night came apart. Merrick's 2 men spun toward the truck, but they were a half-second too slow because they'd been braced for a scared girl, and instead got Diesel and 8 of the hardest men in the state coming over the tailgate like the wrath of God. Get down, Reggie shouted at Emily, and to his eternal credit, in the middle of the worst moment of his life, the coward did the bravest thing he'd ever done. He threw his own body across the open door between Emily and Merrick and shoved her down into the footwell. A shot cracked. Reggie grunted and went down. Reggie, Emily screamed, but she stayed down, hands over her head, floor of the cab, exactly like she'd promised Cole, exactly like she'd sworn. Even as her whole body screamed to get up and help, she stayed down because she'd given her word and because a man had just taken a bullet keeping his. Outside chaos, Diesel's voice roaring names, the 2 hired men going down fast under a wall of angels. And Merrick turning to run, because that was what he did. That was what he'd always done. Hire it out and watch from safety and run. And when it went wrong, he got 3 steps, and Cole Harrison stepped out of the dark directly into his path. Merrick skidded to a stop, And for the first time all night, all 11 years, the flat eyes changed. Because standing in front of him was the one man he'd built his whole revenge around. The man who'd put him away. Alive. Right there. Close enough to touch. "Hello, Danny," Cole said. Merrick's hand went for his belt. Cole was faster. He always had been. He caught Merrick's wrist and twisted, and the gun spun off into the dark, and then it was just two men, the way it should have been from the start, the way it should have been 11 years ago, instead of a hired ambush on an empty road. "You sent 6 men," Cole said, driving him back against the wall of the garage, "to shoot 22 of my brothers off their bikes, on a road in the middle of nowhere, so no one would ever know." Merrick's flat calm cracked into something ugly. "You took 11 years from me. You took 11 years from yourself." Cole's forearm was across the man's chest, pinning him. "You ran guns under our name. You tried to hang us for it. I just told the truth. And you spent 11 years in a cage nursing that instead of once one single time looking at yourself." His voice dropped. "You want to know the worst part? You almost got it. You were this close, Danny. 22 men, my whole family. You almost had them." "What stopped me?" Merrick spat. "Your boys never saw the trap. I know they didn't. So what?" "A girl," Cole said. Merrick blinked. "A 17-year-old girl with nothing to her name but a torn jacket and an empty backpack." Cole leaned in. "You built 11 years of hate into a perfect trap, and it got beat by a homeless kid you had to have stepped over on the street. She's the one in that truck, Danny. The witness. The loose end. She's the reason every one of my brothers is alive. And she walked into your garage tonight, into your camera, into your gun on purpose, because she was afraid you'd get one of us someday if she didn't." His voice shook with something that wasn't quite rage. "That's who beat you, somebody the whole world threw away. Sit with that for the next 11 years. And then he stepped back, and Diesel and Torres took Merrick's arms, and it was done. "Somebody call it in," Cole said, his voice suddenly hollow with the aftermath. "All of it. The road the shooters this. Clean and legal, like I said. Let the law have him. He goes back in a cage where he can't reach anybody." He turned. "Where's?" And then he was running. "Emily, Emily." He hit the passenger door of the truck, and there she was still down in the footwell. Hands over her head, shaking and half on top of her bleeding, was Reggie. "He's shot," Emily was saying, already up now. Already pressing both her small hands against the wound in Reggie's shoulder the way somebody had taught her once, or the way she just figured out because that was who she was. "He got between me and Merrick. He took the shot for me. Cole, he's bleeding. Get help, get help." "Torres, where?" Cole roared. "Medic Torres, get over here, man. Down, gunshot." Torres was there in seconds, army hands moving fast, and Emily didn't let go. Kept her weight on the wound while Torres worked this girl who'd been told to stay down and stay safe, now covered in another person's blood, because she physically could not watch somebody bleed and do nothing. "He's gonna be okay," Torres said finally. "Shoulder. Bad, but he'll live. Kid, you kept pressure on it. That's why he's not worse. You did that." Emily looked down at Reggie, at the man who'd been Merrick's coward an hour ago, and had ended the night taking a bullet for a girl he'd just met. "You stayed," she whispered to him. "You said you'd stay between me and him, and you stayed." Reggie's eyes fluttered. "Told you," he managed, weak, tired of looking away. And Emily Carter, 17 years old, who had learned in 2 brutal years that nobody ever chose her. That everyone always looked away, that promises were lies, and kindness was a trick. Emily put her bloody hand over Reggie's and understood that everything she'd believed about the world had been wrong. Or not wrong, just incomplete. Because the world also had this in it, a man who chose to stay, a club that came back for her, a biker who'd rather lose his war than lose her. "It's over," Cole said behind her softly. He put his hand on her shoulder. "It's over, kid. He's done. He can't reach any of us ever again. And it's because of you. Because of it. Every man here is going home tonight because of you." Emily turned around, and for a long moment she couldn't say anything at all, because the thing she was feeling didn't have words. It was too big and too strange, and she'd waited too long to feel it. "I keep waiting for the part where it goes wrong," she finally said. "The part where you all leave. Where it turns out you didn't mean it. That's what always happens. Somebody's nice to you and then they're gone. I keep waiting for that part." Cole crouched down in front of her right there in the gravel, blood and all, and looked her dead in the eyes. "That part's not coming," he said. "You hear me? That part is never coming. There is no version of tonight where we ride off and leave you standing in a parking lot. That version doesn't exist. It never existed." He put both hands on her shoulders. "You keep waiting for us to leave. Go ahead and wait. You're going to be waiting the rest of your life because we're not going anywhere and neither are you. You've got a family now, Emily, 22 of us, and a family doesn't leave." The tears came then, all of them, 2 years of them, and Emily didn't try to stop them and didn't try to hide them and didn't apologize for them, and Cole just pulled her in and held on while she cried it all out against his shoulder. This enormous, frightening man. The whole world was scared of holding a crying girl in a parking lot like she was the most precious thing he'd ever been trusted with. Behind them, the club stood in a loose ring, and not one man looked away. When the sirens started distant and growing, Emily finally pulled back and wiped her face. "They're going to ask me a lot of questions," she said. "The police, about who I am, where my parents are, where I've been living." Her voice went small and scared in a new way. "They're going to want to put me somewhere, in the system. That's what happens to kids like me. And then, She looked up at Cole, and the fear on her face now wasn't about Merrick or guns or ambushes. It was about the thing she'd finally let herself want being taken away the second she got it. "And then you can't just, I'm a minor, and you can't just keep me. It doesn't work like that. They'll take me somewhere and I'll never..." "Hey." Cole took her face in his rough hands. "Look at me. You let me worry about that. You can't..." "I've got a daughter, Emily," Cole said quietly, and something in the way he said it stopped her cold. "Grown now. Barely see her, and that's my own fault choices I made a long time ago. But I know how the world works, and I know people, and I know how to do a thing right and legal when it matters. And I have never wanted to do anything right as bad as I want to do this right." His thumbs wiped the tears off her cheeks. "You are not going to disappear into any system. Maybe it takes time. Maybe it takes lawyers and papers and a judge. I don't care. However long it takes, whatever it costs, you are not facing one more day of this world alone. I will move heaven and earth. You understand me, heaven and earth." Emily searched his face for the lie, for the trick, for the catch. There wasn't one. "Why Charlie?" she whispered. The same question she'd been asking all night. "Why me? Why do all this for me?" And Cole Harrison, who'd spent 30 years being feared, gave her the truest answer he had. "Because you asked all of us that same question tonight without saying a word," he said. "You stood in front of 22 motorcycles and every one of us thought, why would she do that? Why would a girl with nothing risk everything for strangers? And the answer was because somebody has to. Because when the world's about to hurt someone and everybody else looks away, somebody has to be the one who doesn't." His voice broke. "You were that person for us. When we couldn't see the trap, you were the one who didn't look away. So now it's our turn. That's all this is, kid. That's the whole thing. You didn't look away from us. We're never going to look away from you." The sirens were close now. Emily looked around at them, at Diesel, huge and gruff, who'd called her bait and now stood guard over her like a mountain. At Torres, still keeping pressure on Reggie. At Snake and Cutter and 18 more, every face turned toward her, every one of them, hers now. At Reggie alive, who'd found something in himself because of her. At Cole on his knees in the gravel, holding her face like it mattered. And she stopped waiting for the part where it went wrong, because she finally understood all the way down to the bottom of her that it wasn't coming. "Okay," she said. And this time when she said it, there was no fear in it, and no bracing, and no watching for the next bad thing. Just for the first time in 2 years, the smallest and most enormous thing in the world. Trust. The police kept Emily for 6 hours that night, and Cole Harrison didn't leave the building once. They tried to make him. A detective told him 3 times that he wasn't family, that he had no standing, that he should go home. And 3 times Cole sat back down in the plastic chair in the hallway and said the same thing. "I'll be right here." He wasn't going to let her come out of a room and find an empty hallway. Not after tonight. Not ever. Inside, they asked Emily everything. Her full name, her birthday, where her parents were. And Emily, exhausted still in a jacket stuffed with Reggie's dried blood, told them the truth, all of it, in a flat, quiet voice she'd learned a long time ago. Her mother had died when she was 14. Her father had a new wife by 15 who didn't want her, and a temper that got worse when he drank, and one night when Emily was 15 and a half, he'd told her to get out and not come back, and she'd believed him because he'd said it with his hands. She'd bounced between a shelter and a friend's couch, and then the friend's family moved away, and by 16 she was on the street, and by 17 she'd stopped expecting anyone to come. Nobody reported you missing, the detective said, checking something, and Emily heard the surprise in his voice, the small, terrible surprise of a man realizing a child could vanish, and no one would file a single piece of paper. No, Emily said, nobody would. There's a man in the hallway, the detective said after a long pause. Says he's not leaving until he sees you, says his name's Cole Harrison. You know him. And Emily, who had answered every question that night in that flat, quiet voice, felt her throat close. Yeah, she said, I know him. She stopped. What was he? A man she'd met that afternoon. A stranger. An outlaw the whole world was afraid of. He's my family, she said. The detective looked at her for a long moment. Then he stood up and opened the door. Cole was on his feet before it was all the way open. And when he saw her small, exhausted, still blood-stained, but there, safe hole, something in his chest that had been clenched tight for 6 hours finally let go. You stayed, Emily said. I told you I would. 6 hours. I'd have stayed 6 days. He crossed the hallway. You okay? Did they treat you okay? Anybody give you a hard time? You tell me right now. They were fine. Her eyes were wet. Cole, they said, because nobody ever reported me because I've been on my own so long, they said it's complicated. There's no parent who's looking for me. There's no home to send me back to. They said I'll go to emergency placement, some group home, until they figure out. For how long? They don't know. Weeks, maybe more. Cole was quiet for a second, and Emily braced the way she always braced for the part where the promise met reality and reality won. Okay, Cole said. Then here's what happens. You go where they say you have to go tonight because we do this right and legal. Remember, we don't give anybody a reason to say we did it wrong. And starting tomorrow morning, I start doing everything a man can legally do to change your situation. Lawyers, home study, whatever a judge needs to see. I've already made some calls. He almost smiled. Turns out saving 22 people and stopping an attempted mass murder makes folks take your phone calls even when you look like me. You can't just adopt a 17-year-old Cole. It doesn't. Foster first, Cole said. Then we see. There's a process. I've been on the phone with a lawyer for 2 hours already while you were in there. It's not fast and it's not simple. And there's 100 ways the state could say no. He crouched down to her level the way he had in the parking lot. But Emily, I've got a clean record, a home, and an income, and about 1,000 character witnesses in leather who'll swear to a judge you saved their lives. And I've got one more thing that matters more than all of it. What? I want to, he said simply. You've spent 2 years surrounded by people who could have helped and didn't want to. Well, here's a man who wants to. And that turns out to count for a lot. The detective, still standing in the doorway, cleared his throat. For what it's worth, he said. I've been doing this 18 years. I've never seen a case file like tonight's. And I've never seen a man wait 6 hours in a hallway for a kid who isn't his. He looked at Cole. You do it right, every form, every home visit, no shortcuts. I'll write whatever the court needs from my end. That's not nothing. But you do it right. Every form, Cole said. No shortcuts. You have my word. It took 4 months. 4 months of home visits and paperwork and a caseworker who came to Cole's house unannounced twice and found it clean and warm and stocked with food in a bedroom that Cole had painted himself badly because he'd never painted a room in his life. But he wasn't going to let anyone else do it. 4 months of a group home where Emily counted days and where Cole visited every single visiting day without missing one, and where the other kids stopped believing her when she said a Hell's Angel was going to foster her, until the day 22 motorcycles pulled up out front and every kid in that home pressed their faces to the windows. 4 months of a judge who was skeptical and had every right to be looking down from the bench at a 52-year-old outlaw biker asking to take in a 17-year-old girl and asking hard questions. The right questions, the questions a good judge should ask. And it was Emily who answered the one that mattered. The judge had asked Cole a dozen things, and Cole had answered them all steady and plain. And then the judge looked at Emily and said, "You've been through a great deal, young lady. And I have to be careful with you, especially when someone's offering you something that looks like a rescue. So I'm going to ask you directly, and I want you to know you can say anything, and no one in this room can be angry with you for it. Do you want this? Do you want to live with this man? And Emily stood up in the one nice outfit the group home had found for her, and she looked at Cole sitting there in a suit that fit him wrong because he'd bought it just for that day, and she looked back at the judge. Can I tell you a story first? She asked. The judge blinked. Go ahead. 4 months ago, I was standing on a highway watching 22 motorcycles come at me at full speed. And I had a choice. I could hide and be safe and let those men ride into a trap and die. Or I could step out into the road in front of all of them and probably get killed doing it. She kept her eyes on the judge. Everybody in my life up to that day had taught me the same lesson over and over, that you look out for yourself, that nobody's coming to help you, that when you're in trouble, people look away. Her voice was steady. So by everything I'd learned, I should have hidden, saved myself. That's what the world taught me to do. But you didn't, the judge said quietly. No, I stepped into the road. Emily's chin lifted. And that man, she pointed at Cole, stopped 22 motorcycles for a girl he'd never met. And then he found out I was hungry and he fed me. And he found out I was scared and he protected me. And he found out I had nowhere to go. And instead of doing what everyone else in my life did, instead of looking away, he sat in a hallway for 6 hours. And then he painted a bedroom he'd never painted. And then he put on a suit that doesn't fit and came here to ask you to let him keep looking after me. She was crying now, but her voice didn't shake. So you asked if I want this. Your Honor, I stepped in front of 22 motorcycles for these people when I had every reason in the world to run. That's how much I trust them. I bet my life on them before I even knew their names. I'm not scared to bet the rest of it on them now. The courtroom was silent. The judge took off her glasses and set them down and was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke, her voice was not quite as steady as a judge's voice is supposed to be. In 22 years on the bench, she said, I have rarely been as sure of a decision as I am right now. And she granted it. Emily didn't remember much of the next few minutes. She remembered Cole standing up so fast his chair scraped the floor. She remembered him crossing the room and lifting her clean off her feet in a hug that squeezed the breath out of her. She remembered outside the courthouse that the sound started low and then filled the whole street, 21 motorcycles roaring all at once, because Diesel had parked the entire club outside the courthouse and told them to lay on the engines the second they saw Bear come through those doors with the girl. She remembered Diesel, huge and gruff, coming up and standing in front of her, working his jaw like he had something to say and couldn't find it. I called you bait, he finally said. First day on the road. I remember, Emily said. I want you to remember something else instead. He pulled something out of his vest, a small leather patch, hand-stitched, worn soft. He pressed it into her hands. That was my daughter's. I lost her a long time ago, to something that wasn't anybody's fault, just the way things go sometimes. I never thought I'd have anyone to give it to. His voice was rough as gravel. You're not bait, kid. You're family. You're my family. And this club has been missing something for a long time, and it turns out it was you. We just didn't know it till you stepped in front of us. Emily held the little patch in both hands and couldn't speak. Reggie was there too, arm still in a sling, 4 months later. Walking slow, but walking. He'd told the police everything he knew about Merrick, and it had turned an attempted murder case into something much bigger. And it had also, the prosecutor said, earned Reggie enough goodwill to keep him out of a cell. He'd started fixing bikes for the club, quiet and useful, a man rebuilding himself one honest day at a time. You know, he said to Emily, you told me that night that someday I'd tell somebody about the night I stopped being a coward. I remember. I've told it about 40 times now. He almost smiled. Nobody believes the part where a 17-year-old girl was the bravest one there. But that's the part that's true. And Danny Merrick went back to prison, and this time it wasn't for 11 years. The attempted murder of 22 people, the hired shooters, the ambush on the road, then all of it laid out clean and legal, exactly the way Cole had insisted from the very first minute on that highway. He would not be getting out to hunt anyone ever again. The trap he'd built over 11 years had caught only one person in the end, and that person was himself. That night, the night the judge signed the papers, Emily went home. Not to a bridge, not to a shelter, not to a group home where she counted days. Home. Cole's house had a real bedroom with a door that locked from the inside because the caseworker had suggested it, and Cole had understood immediately why a girl who'd slept under a bridge for 2 years might need to be the one who decided when her door was open. It had a bed with actual sheets. It had a window that looked out over a yard. And taped to the mirror where she'd see it every morning, Cole had put a photograph, 22 motorcycles on a desert highway, and one skinny girl standing in front of them, taken by Reggie that first day, before any of them knew how the story would go. Under it, Cole had written 4 words in his rough handwriting. The day everything changed, Emily stood in the doorway of that room for a long time. And then she did something she hadn't done in 2 years. She set her backpack down, the old backpack empty, that had been the only thing she owned, and she didn't keep it close, didn't keep it ready by the door. For the moment she'd have to run again, because there wasn't going to be a moment she'd have to run again. She sat on the edge of the bed and she cried one more time, but they weren't the old tears. The old tears had been about surviving. These were about something she'd stopped believing existed. Cole knocked softly on the open door. "You okay?" "Yeah," she wiped her face. "I keep thinking about that afternoon. On the highway, how close I came to hiding." Cole came and sat down beside her, the bed creaking under him. "You want to know what I keep thinking about?" he said. "I keep thinking about all the people who drove past you those 2 years. All the ones who saw a homeless kid and looked away. And how not one of them knew not one that the girl they were ignoring was going to turn out to be the bravest person any of us ever met." He shook his head slowly. "The whole world looked right at you and saw nothing, Emily, and they were wrong. Every single one of them was wrong." "I used to think they were right," she admitted quietly. "I used to think if that many people look at you and decide you don't matter, then maybe you don't. And now, Emily was quiet for a moment. She looked at the photograph on the mirror, at the little leather patch Diesel had given her sitting on the nightstand, at the locked door that she got to decide about, at the enormous, gruff, gentle man sitting beside her who had chosen her when no one else on earth had. "Now I know they were just looking away," she said. "That's all it ever was. It was never about whether I mattered. It was about whether they'd bother to see. And some people do." She looked at him. "Some people stop 22 motorcycles." Cole put his arm around her shoulders and she leaned into it, and for a while neither of them said anything at all. Years later, and there were years, good ones, full ones. Emily would tell this story herself. She'd tell it to a college classroom because she went to college, the first person in her family ever to do it, on a scholarship and a recommendation letter signed by a judge. She'd tell it in a social work office because that's what she became, the person who goes toward the kid everyone else drives past. She'd tell it at a wedding her own with 21 aging bikers in the pews and Cole Harrison walking her down the aisle, gray beard gone white, now crying so hard he could barely see. And every single time she told it, people would ask her the same question the judge had asked, the same question she'd asked Cole 100 times that first night. "Why? Why did you step into the road? Why did you risk everything for strangers?" And every single time Emily Carter gave the same answer. "Because somebody has to be the one who doesn't look away," she'd say. "The whole world had looked away from me for 2 years. I knew exactly what it felt like to be the person on the ground that nobody helps. And when I saw 22 people about to ride into something terrible, I had a choice. I could be one more person who looked away, or I could be the one who didn't." She'd smile, then the sauce that took her years to learn. "I chose to be the one who didn't, and it saved 22 lives. And then those 22 people turned around and saved mine. That's the whole thing. That's everything I know about how the world works. When you refuse to look away from someone in trouble, you don't just save them. You start something, and it comes back around. It always comes back around." She was right. A homeless girl with nothing but courage stepped into the path of 22 men the world was afraid of and refused to look away. And in doing so, she didn't just stop a trap and save their lives. She proved something that every forgotten person on every cold street needs to know is true. That the ones nobody sees can be the strongest of all. That the people everyone fears can be the ones who protect the forgotten. And that no one is ever truly beyond saving as long as somebody somewhere refuses to walk away. Emily Carter was never invisible. The world just hadn't been looking. But 22 people looked. And that made all the difference, and it always, always will.